Need help now.
There is no good reason, if you are able to vote, not to vote.
We need to, right? We need to have individuals that are in office like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Good governance makes a difference.
To the thousands who did not vote, we need you to show up for our future and for our country.
That's right. You cannot sit on the sidelines. You got to get in the game.
Thank you for joining this Biden-Harris campaign event, Black Men for Biden, Shop Talk. And now, please welcome founder and chief curator of Men Thrive, Jeff Johnson.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for being with us tonight for, I think, what's going to be an incredible conversation. I've spent the last 20 years engaging our community around issues of politics and voting. And a real concentrated amount of time talking to Black men, finding out what Black men are in need of, and how we move them to the polls. And in this election, I think people talk all the time about every election being the most important of our lifetime. I don't think this is any different, but we do have to be honest about the fact that there are, while there are a number of Black men that are prepared to vote, that are registered, that are engaged, there are equally a large number of brothers who have not yet been engaged, who have not figured out what they want to do or how they want to do it. And in many cases, it's not because they don't care. It's because they've got some real feelings about the issues that concern them, how they take care of their families, what this election means for their money, how they have access to it, what it means for employment and healthcare. So I'm excited to talk to this group of brothers, not only about why they are voting and the things that they care about, but also just about Black men in general. The fact that we're not a monolith and that there are a vast majority of us that are incredibly varied in what we care about and how we're going to show up to the polls, but that are going to be impacted by what happens in this next election nonetheless. And so it is a real honor for me to introduce our panel tonight. And really less a panel, but more just a crew of brothers that are going to have this conversation. You know who most of them are, and so I'm not going to read long bios, but we've got actor, father, husband, Sean Patrick Thomas. We have the youngest representative in the state of Michigan in the Michigan State House, and that's Rep. Jewel Jones. We have the Grand Basileus of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, Dr. David Marion, and we have not only rapper but community servant and brother, my man Jeezy is joining us as well. And before we get into the conversation, I want to be real clear about something, just so everybody knows. Dr. Marion is the Grand Basileus of one of our greatest fraternities, but he is representing himself so that he can talk with a level of freedom disconnected from his status with the fraternity. He is a longtime entrepreneur and is a doctor of psychology who has a business where he is engaging our community around mental health. So not only does he have a great deal of service in the organization he's part of, but a great deal of service in his vocation. And so again, I want to welcome you brothers to tonight. I want to start with a real simple question, and that is, why do you vote? Why do you vote? Why do you take the time to learn? Why do you take the time to go to the poll? Why do you take the time to pull the lever? And Rep. Jones, I'm gonna start with you, brother. Why do you vote?
You know, for me, I think I vote because if you don't vote, you don't count. And for me, this conversation is extremely necessary. I think while a few of us might be able to keep a job and stay alive, that many of us, our homies, our friends, our relatives, over these next 4 years, if the election doesn't go in the correct direction, might not be able to survive. So I vote right now to live. I think that it's important for us to make sure that we realize that the people that we put in office, we have to hold them accountable, and they're there to work for us. But at the same time, we have to work with them. And so it's a constant synergy that goes back and forth. And so when I vote, it's not just something that I do at the polls, it's something that is consistent throughout the year. It's not just when the election comes. And so I'm constantly engaged. And I think that that's what I encourage other people to do, because we have to realize that Being civically engaged means that we invest in our communities, we invest in ourselves, we allow ourselves to grow. And that's why I vote. That's why I vote.
And I appreciate you raising this notion of civic participation, because voting is one part of the civic participation. And we'll talk about that as we go on. Sean, what about you? Why do you vote?
I vote because you can't really complain about the conditions in your life if you don't vote, if you don't participate in the process. I have my grandfather always used to tell me when I complained about anything, he would say, well, what's your part in it? And so that's at the core and at the root of why I've always voted, is just because I don't want to feel like there are things going on around me in my life and with my people, and I'm not taking any ownership of it. And so it began there. I mean, my mom and dad would take me in the voting booth when I was, 5, 6 years old. So it's always just been a part of how we think and what we do.
Mm-hmm. Jeezy, what about you?
I vote because, coming from where I came from, we didn't ever have a voice. We didn't ever have an opinion. We just kind of had to go along with what was going on. So when you start talking prison reform, when you start talking unemployment, these are things that we had no idea that we had some type of input on. So once I realized that, voting is a big piece of that, and I was able to vote, and that gave me that much power, whether the person I voted for or not won, that gave me a voice. And I just feel like coming from a community that doesn't have a voice, when you're able to get out here and voice your opinion for your loved ones, your kids, your family, your employees, your employers, you have to do that. As a Black man, because, it's not a lot that we can say in this world that people listen to anyway, as you can see. So at this point, you got to vote if you can. You got to do something. You can't just sit back and sit on the sideline.
And Dr. Marion, what about you? Why you vote?
I think that it's important. I vote because my ancestors died for my right to vote. I vote because grandmama and them couldn't vote, right? I vote because I see how much effort is put in to stop us from voting. Here in Mississippi, where I live, if you couldn't guess the number of seeds in the watermelon, if you couldn't guess how many bubbles were in the bar of soap, or if you couldn't guess how many bumps were on the cucumber, you couldn't vote. So if folks are willing to go to those extremes to stop us from voting, that rebel in me rises up to make me want to go to the polls, even in a pandemic, and vote.
Well, and Doc, I appreciate you saying that. I think some people may have thought that was conjecture, but those were literal poll tax questions.
Absolutely.
When Black folks went to vote, you were asked how many bubbles are in a bar of soap. And obviously, if you can't get that right, you can't vote. Mm-hmm. How many bumps are on a cucumber? That was a real question. And so it's not just talk here. Those were legitimately the barriers that were put in place for some people to vote. I vote because I've got children. And as I think about the education I want them to have, the schools I want them to have, the access to resources I want them to have without having to go above and beyond. And frankly, for equity in a real way to be part of our DNA as we transition, hopefully, from an era of white supremacy to an era of equity, recognizing what that will do for the communities that my children will lead, very different from the communities that all of us have been leading. And I ask the question, brothers, because so often there's some people that think that question of why do you vote is a foregone conclusion. And it can't be, because we can't just tell people to vote just because. They've got to know why we do it if we want to be involved in encouraging others to do it. So I appreciate you answering what may have seemed like a remedial question, but I think it's critical if we're talking to people that haven't yet decided if they think they should. And let's get into these issues a little bit. There's been a whole lot of conversation about not only Black people, but Black men and this election. Many of you know that 1 out of 6 college-educated Black men voted for Trump in 2016. And there are people that find that hard to believe. one, we're not a monolith, and two, there's a lot of reasons why we go to the polls. But is there something specific as you all think about this election beyond not wanting Trump in office? I think that's enough. but when it comes down to
Right.
what you want, what about this campaign said, okay, not only do I want Trump out of here, but there's something that this campaign is saying they want to deliver that speaks to my own aspirations. Doc, I want to come to you first on that.
Well, I think one of the things, if you look at Biden's Black agenda, he talks about a lot of the issues that are important to all of us. He talks about the wealth gap. I was reading something recently where it talked about in Boston, for example, the average net worth of a white family was $247,000, and the average net worth of a Black family was $8. I had to read that again because I was in such disbelief. $8. And so when you have someone that speaks about what they can do for HBCUs, they understand that African Americans have been disproportionately hit during this pandemic, and they're talking about ways of remedying that. When you talk about African American businesses that have been disproportionately hit during this pandemic, and they're talking about a remedy for that. I think they're talking the kinds of things in terms of education discrimination, housing discrimination, employment discrimination. Those are the kinds of things that we want to see addressed that we just don't hear from the other side. So I think it's important that we engage Biden on those questions. I've had the pleasure of doing so. He's answered in ways that were affirming to me. And so that's why I'm here.
I appreciate that. Rep Jones, when you think about the legislative reality that we're in, where we've seen presidents have to use executive order in many cases because Congress will or will not actually pass laws. As you think about this Biden and Harris agenda, what's the item for you that you're excited they're saying they want to bring straight to the people, as opposed to needing legislation to make real?
Well, you know, when I think about that, I think it's funny that you say this reality that we're living in, because I think that some people now are treating this as a reality show. And some are treating this as real life. And I think that, you know, my folks, the people that I serve are messed up right now. You know, we have brothers, to be specific, who are used to working to get a dollar, who now are having a hard time finding that. Entire industries are jacked up. And I can't look them in the face and say it's all right or it's going to be all right. And I think that the Biden-Harris campaign now is giving us that hope back that, hey, I want to come invest back into you. I want to instill that hope back into you. I want to give you that opportunity again and that access so you can go ahead and do things that are conducive to growth, towards growth in your community. I think that's what I've seen a lot more of. I think that it's a show with our current president.
No doubt. Jeezy, what about you?
I think that's the reality with
Yeah, Jeezy, for you, what's the reason why you decided to come out and endorse as early as you did, in many cases, this ticket?
I'm all about valuing people, you know, valuing individuals, valuing culture, valuing lives, valuing jobs. And I feel like what I've seen with Trump's administration, it is the exact opposite of that. I think the things that are going on in the streets right now that are real to us, he doesn't take seriously. I feel that the people that are losing their lives and losing their jobs and, you know, getting kicked out of their houses, to him, that's not real life, you know, and I can see that. But on the other side of that, what I've seen Biden and Harris do is get out here and touch the people, is get out here and talk to people, is go see families that are going through these crises, and not look at them as they're not being valued. And to me, it's just like, I look at it like a company. Like, you can run a company and you can make money. Let's just say, you know, the Trump administration is making money. It's, you know, it's a good company. But if your company is in turmoil, your employees don't get along, you know, everything is chaos, do you really have a successful country? So that makes me ask, do we really have a successful country? Because it's chaos. And we need some other type of leadership that values people. And I feel like Biden and Harris actually value people. And that's why I'm here.
Thanks for that.
I was going to say, Jeff, if I could too, I think
Sure.
what's amazing to me, to piggyback what Jeezy was talking about, is to see him not care what's going on in the street. And I think that's a little different from not really appreciating it or not understanding it, but just not caring, not caring to see about the marching, not caring about Breonna Taylor, not caring about Ahmaud Arbery, not caring about George Floyd, watching somebody put their knee on somebody's neck for that 8 minutes and 46 seconds, put their left hand in their pocket, lean in and look in the camera until that man died, and to not be moved by that. But I saw a campaign stop where they were shouting, "We love you." And he said, "I'm about to cry if you keep saying that." And I thought to myself, damn, you about to cry because they say I love you, but it didn't bother you that George Floyd died right in front of your eyes.
Yeah, no,
because sir, that's about him. That's not about us.
Right. I would definitely say Dr. Marion, that's right on point. It's not that he doesn't care. It's just not politically, politically strategic for him.
Right.
You know?
I don't think, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think he's even, I mean, you know, and not to make this about, I mean, listen, man, when you're talking about leading people, you have to have certain qualities. You know what I'm saying? And where I come from is based on integrity. You can give me money and everything, but I'm not going for that if it goes against my integrity. So if I'm in a position of leadership, the people that I lead, I have to at least care for them. I have to have some type of empathy. That's what we're based on. This is the country we live in. If we don't have any type of empathy, what do we have? And when you're going up there and you're telling us, you know, the pandemic is not this and that, and then all the people are dying, and then you're doing speeches on the White House lawn, and none of you guys are wearing masks, and we don't know what's going on, and we're losing our jobs, and y'all killing us, and you're not taking the time to say, hey, I feel with you, I feel for you, you know, this is what I can do. I haven't heard that one time, you know, and we're not
going to hear it.
Yeah,
of course not.
And with that being said, I would rather put my time, effort, and energy into someone that is willing to get out here and putting something on the line for us. And when I say us, that means all of us, the people, you know, Sean, the people, because we are the country.
Sean, I want to give you the chance because I know that you haven't made the choice to support without being clear about what some of the deliverables are. So for you, what's the deliverable that's one of the reasons that you wanted to support this campaign beyond, I think many of us just get this other dude out of office.
Right. Well, my feeling is very personal because I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware. So when I was growing up, Joe Biden was my senator my entire life, you know? And so I have a built-in trust level factor with him that I just am very certain that he's going to follow through on the things that he says he wants to do. So in terms of a deliverable, I don't know if you mean legislative, but to me, just like a top level acknowledgement that white supremacy exists and that it's an issue and that it's a problem is something that he can deliver. He already has delivered it, but we need to hear it from a white man in the White House right now. That's something that he can do and that he has done and that he's willing to do. He's built up, he's the type of person like in Delaware is very segregated. And where I grew up, it was either all white or all black. And I grew up in an area that happened to be all white. And so I have a very fine-tuned radar for when a white man is looking at you and he really sees you as a person or he just sees, you know, a black guy. And the Bidens really look at you and they see you and they know you and they look at you as a person. They don't look at you as just like a color or a statistic or whatever. They're fantastic people who really take you in and have great humanity.
So let's talk about this because we know that there are a number of black men that are either talking about sitting this out. They're talking about the fact that, Sean, they don't have the same level of trust for this ticket as you do. Mm-hmm. And while they may hate Donald Trump, they still believe that somebody has to show them something beyond not supporting Trump to be the reason they turn out. And I think that's legitimate. I don't have an issue with that at all. I'm asking you all, what are some of the things that we need to be saying if I got a brother who's saying, listen, real talk, Kamala is an attorney that locked us up. Biden is an elected official that supported the crime bill. Nah, I don't really know if I can rock with them. Now we can brush that under the rug all we want, but all of us have heard brothers say that in the last week. Right. And so what's the conversation that we're having to say, let me lean into that and have a conversation with you, as opposed to, oh, dog, you just got to get Trump out of here and we can deal with all this other stuff later.
I think they got to be clear on their message and their agenda. Like, simplicity is the key where we come from. We just got to know what you're going to do and how far you're willing to go. And you're absolutely right. When you hear about somebody locking people up, or the laws that Biden passed and the things that happen, as a black man, you thinking like, it's the same thing. It's like choosing the lesser of the evils. You know what I'm saying? If you don't have, who's really going to educate themselves on everything else they do? You just hear the bad. You from where I'm from, it's like you always hear the bad and you go with that. So I just think them being more clear on what their message is and what it is they intend to do can just open up those doors. Because when you're in the barbershop, you're having those talks, you're only talking about the real. You're not talking about the fluff. Mm-hmm. And when you go home, you want to, and how I go, you're in the barbershop, it's simplicity. You just want to know what they're doing, why they're doing it, and are they really going to do it,
Well, listen, and there's a clear lift every voice agenda. I mean, I don't know if I don't know if I love it being called lift every voice. They should have got with you earlier, Jeezy, and called it the put on agenda.
You're right, right.
but there's real policy recommendations within it. And I don't know if those policy recommendations that are listed within that proposal you all ultimately hit the street in regular conversation.
I'll tell you, let me play devil's advocate. So we in the barbershop right now, we talking, we on the block, whatever. Okay, Harris, Biden, lift every voice. I'm asking you, what does that mean to you?
Listen, James Weldon Johnson to me is one of the most brilliant, he and his brother, most brilliant songwriters ever. I actually love Lift Every Voice as a song, but I don't think it connects necessarily to the current day. But the issue for me is less the title. And I think that it's filled with real policy recommendations that brothers could actually get with if they knew they were there.
I was just saying the same thing.
But in layman's terms, like if I'm asking you and I don't really know what they bring to the table, I'm asking you because you obviously have co-signed as well. Like, and I'm not educated on this. Like, how do you explain to me what their vision is so I can pass it along to my son or my homie or somebody I'm just happen to be cool with in layman's terms? Because that's what it is. Like, we get what we get.
If I can, Jeff, I would think that it's not even so much about Biden and Harris. I think we have to look at the current situation. Trump is electing, or not electing, but appointing racist judges, young racist judges. People, and when you get appointed, we're not able to unelect these people. These are people that will be in there for their entire lifetime. And so we have to act like we know what's really going on here. It's not about just, like we said earlier, it's not about the top of the ticket. This is about the entire continuum of people that will be in office based on who is at the top of the ticket. And so it's not just about Trump. It's not just about Biden. It's about who are they bringing with them on the team. And that's the most important part that we have to stress, is that when Biden and Harris get in, they're actually going to bring in people that we can hold accountable, people that are like us, people that share that common sense, people that when we're in their courtroom in front of them, they will look out for us. That we're not, when we're talking about mandatory minimums, all these different things like this, we have people there who will interpret it in a way that is actually conducive towards the uplift of our community, and namely Black and brown communities, and namely Black communities. And that's why I'm with Biden and Harris, because I know that when they get there, they'll look out for us, and it won't be any conditions.
And Jewel, that's a real thing, right? That's a real thing. That is, a president selects judges, and not just in the United States Supreme Court, but in in federal courts
All
all over the
Right.
country. And if you are a Black man that cares about how many of us get locked up, how the law is administered, then you're going to care about the kind of judges that are there. But that's what I'm talking about, right? That's a real tangible reason why this decision with this ticket is about them, because they're the ones that are willing to make that kind of decision versus somebody else that wants to put in judges that don't want to do that. Sean, I know you wanted to come in, brother. Come on in.
Well, I'm just going to piggyback on what the representative said. Is basically, it's about the whole concept of voting. You have to vote at the midterms. You have to vote for your local sheriff, your local attorney general, you know, and that's where things really make a difference to people's everyday lives and where they can see how voting makes a difference. And so, yes, in terms of judges being appointed, Biden and Harris specifically, that's a specific deliverable that we know we're going to get, and that is something that's going to make a huge impact on our lives. But it has to be the entire concept of voting, so that you know that, you know, your local school board is going to have a good hot lunch program, you know, that type of thing. Like, people need to vote on those things, and they're going to see those results in their day-to-day lives. And I think that's what makes the difference, the whole concept of participation.
I was going to say too,
Jeezy,
Jeff, that
real quick, Doc, but Jeezy,
sure.
I think that in a lot of ways is the answer to your question, because one of the things that I always do with brothers, I ask them what they pissed about.
Right.
Like, what are you pissed about and what do you want? And if you tell me something you pissed about and you tell me something you want, I can show you somebody that on a daily basis either has access to billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars that most of them are paying into, or responsibility for fixing that issue. And why let them be there and not roll on them? And whether that is determining who gets in, or if they in, rolling on them to make sure that they know what you care about. And I've seen that work for a lot of cats, man, because a lot of times politics is here and we don't break it down to, you pissed about your kid's school looking the way it does.
Right.
Here's a member of the state legislature that's responsible for the bill that made that happen. You pissed that your street got all these potholes. It ain't the mayor. Your city council person is supposed to be the one taking this issue to get this done, right? So it's how do we draw the bridge between what I'm pissed about and who's responsible for addressing it?
That's a great way to put it.
Doc, please go ahead.
I like what you were saying. I was piggybacking on what Sean was talking about, those down ballot races.
Yeah.
And how most Republican voters vote the whole thing, you know, the whole ballot, where most Democrats just vote that top race. And so I think that's important, because all politics is local. And so when you get into voting, that's why it's so important. And then I was going to say that Biden and Harris's agenda, this Black agenda, is online. If we would only look at it, I think they have to do a better job of breaking that down into smaller bits and sending that out to everyone.
Correct.
And then lastly, I would say to the brother who is wondering if he should vote is, I mean, who are you going to vote for? It's either Biden, Harris, or Trump, Pence. It ain't like a third person is coming. And we just have to stop comparing Joe Biden to Jesus. He ain't Jesus. He's Joe Biden. And one of the wonderful things I heard Representative Marshall Fudge said to me, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So we keep looking for Biden to be perfect and finding fault with him. He's not going to be perfect. But I think he's a better choice than what you got.
Correct.
Absolutely. So listen, there are Black women turn out like crazy. They are one of the most reliable voting blocks of any demographic in the United States electorate. But Black women also vote for families and communities, and Black men often vote for themselves. And listen, I'll be straight up. I remember Jeezy being on the set of Rap City, and in previous elections, like pre-Obama. And I remember when Vote or Die was going on, and a brother would be like, yo, now I'm voting for Bush. And I'd be like, for real? And he'd be like, man, you know how much money I make? So listen, I don't even trust Kerry. Bush gonna let me keep my money. And I can do with my money what I need to for the people I'm trying to help, versus voting for this other dude who gonna take my money and I don't trust what he gonna do with it. And so I just think we gotta stop projecting our view on politics on other people and start having a more pointed conversation at, so wait a minute, you doing this, but do you understand? Let me help you understand what's really happening when you make that decision. And so I'm curious about, you know, what are some of the ways that we should be doing a better job of engaging Black men from the suites to the streets, because all those Black men aren't the same. But as you all think about the Black men in your lives, the Black men that you know who haven't made a decision yet, and Doc, to your point, they're not saying they voting for Trump. Sometimes they just saying they're not voting. Right. And so for them, it's not necessarily a choice between Trump and Biden. For them, it is, I ain't with none of these folks. I'm sitting this one out. Right. So what are some of the things that we can better do to effectively have a conversation that meets cats where they are versus where we want them to be?
Is that to me?
No, that's
anybody. Okay.
Start.
I see Jeezy leaning in. I'll let him start.
Yeah, yeah, big dog. I just, you know, for me, it's crazy because even when Obama was running, you know, everybody was excited. The energy was in the air. You know, it's all about movements, you know, and I just feel like, you know, we got a couple months. It's got to, you know, we got to get the movement going. And the only way you get movement going is you get people excited about what you're doing, you know, and it's about influence. And the only way to influence people who are out here fending for themselves is to relate to them the best way you know how, the best way you can. Because to me, it's like information. You know, information is key, because when I'm talking to people and I'm moving around, they have no idea what's going on and who's doing what. They just know he's in office, let's get him out. And other people like, well, they don't care about us anyway, so I'm going to take my time and go to the poll and go through all these changes and stand in line. And then I went to vote in Atlanta, and the whole process of it was a nightmare. You know, everything was unorganized. So it's so tedious. And it's just like, when you coming from where we come from, it's like, okay, why am I even go out here and do all that? They're not going to change anything for me. And that's what they see. So it's hard to get a man. By the way, it's hard to get a Black man to do anything he don't want to do, especially somebody else. You know what I mean? So if he feel like he's doing you a favor by voting for you and you're not going to do him a favor, and he doesn't have the information, he's not going to move as quick, you know. But at the same time, you know, it's like, it's the information. I have to be honest, because when I'm talking to people, they just don't know. And even when you try to get, and like me and you talking to you guys, like, I've been through a lot of things in my life, but I've always been a good listener. And I just take things in, and I take what I can. I don't understand it all. You know what I'm saying? But like, I can't, I'm not a politician. I'm not an actor. I'm just a Black man trying to make it. And I'm trying to do what's best for my family and my kids and my loved ones. So I'm getting the information that I'm giving. And it gets tricky somewhere, because it's like, it's so many things coming at you. You turn on the news, it's this, it's that. And you don't understand what it is you have to do to make the best decision for yourself. And sometimes it get overwhelming. If you're not excited about what somebody's bringing to the table, you don't understand what they're doing, you're not going to move.
Rep, Joel, you know, we hear this, what Jeezy's talking about all the time, this conversation about the excitement level. And I think one of the biggest challenges of people who lived during Obama is that there's an expectation that there's ever going to be an excitement level that is as high as it was for President Obama. Culturally, that's difficult to recreate. Politically, that's difficult to recreate. And sometimes Jeezy's point of, how do we get people excited when their idea of what excitement isn't attainable? So we got to have a more mature approach to what this election piece is about, similar to what I've heard all of you say, Sean in particular. But listen, man, you've been in Detroit, bro, and you've helped people turn out to vote in a city where a lot of people said the jig is up, dog, ain't nothing ever gonna get better. And so how do you recommend we begin to engage folks who actually don't believe stuff is gonna get better? But you were able to engage and create messaging and move people, whether you were the candidate or not, to get the kind of brothers we're talking about to move to the polls anyway. So talk to us a little bit about strategy, about some of the things that you've seen work.
I think Dr. Marion said it best. Our politics is local, and so you have to meet people where they're at. And a lot of times the slogan is, you playing checkers when the game is really chess. But I think sometimes we get carried away playing chess when the game is really checkers. You don't have to abandon being a liberal or being an activist or being a black man. It's very simple, and I believe you said it. One of these two people is going to be president at the end of the day, and so we have to realize that one is better than the other one, and we have to vote that ticket. And then realize that, after we vote for someone, we can hold them accountable. And so when I'm having conversations with folks, it's about the everyday issues. And it's about just being very, very, very frank. This vote is not about being excited. It's not about, anything emotional, not about anything personal. It's about being strategic. If we want to get resources for our neighborhoods, if we want to fix those roads, if we want to improve our educational systems, if we want to have better law enforcement, if we want to actually be able to uplift our community and from a developmental aspect or anything, we have to vote for people that are going to look at our city, look at our town, look at our neighborhoods, and know that, hey, we supported them. And so all the time, it's not about our personal relationships with individuals, but sometimes about being strategic. And of course, we can be strategic and transactional with individuals like Trump, but we can be strategic and transformational with individuals like Biden and Harris, who can really see the visions that we have in our communities and help us get to where we need to be. That's exactly why, that's why I'm on that ticket.
Well, and I appreciate what you said. And I think that many of us have seen the negative critique of Cube in the last few weeks because he said, listen, I'm trying to make a deal. I'm not giving away my vote for nothing. I want something in return. And I think most people got with him until he said, I'll vote for Trump if he delivers on my agenda more. And listen, I think he was playing chess and was just saying, listen, I can't go into a meeting already saying I'm with you if I'm trying to negotiate terms. But I do want to ask you all your thoughts on what does it mean for our community, even in this moment, to be really clear about how are we not just saying, Biden Harris, I'm with you, but Biden Harris, here's what my vote is worth. And while I'm not thinking about voting for this fool, if you want me to turn out for you and you want me to get excited for you, how are you best communicating what I need in this moment, not just what you need me to do? And I don't know if we've really effectively done that, you all.
I don't think I don't think what you just said is not consistent with someone who's not acting like they're a captured electorate. So I think, to me, when you're a captured electorate, you just go in and say, whatever you give me, you're fine. When you take the approach that you're taking, you're demanding something for your community. I like the wonderful comparison you did when you talked about how the reasons why African-American women vote versus African-American men. And I think that psychology is what we have to change in an African-American man when he votes. It's not about what you can personally get out the deal. It's about how does this benefit our community? How will this benefit your children and your grandchildren down the road? That is what you're looking at.
Let me push back on you a little bit, because what do you say to a brother when what he gets is what they get? So if I'm the breadwinner, if the bag that I get is the bag that they get, if the house that I provide is the house that they live in, if the stuff that comes to me is the stuff that they comes to them, then while they may have a very narrow and granular process in how they decide what they're doing, they're still very clear that this family is on my back. And so I don't know if that necessarily has to be changed as much as I think you talked about. How can we help the vision be a little bit broader? But I know brothers who are making those kind of decisions because they know that if I don't work, the family doesn't eat. If I don't get this bag, then the family doesn't have this house. And so it's not so much a narcissistic kind of decision that I'm just trying to make a deal for me. It's that it's a lot of people riding on this train connected to my engine.
But that, to me, is almost a self-serving deal, that I don't know if it's going to trickle down to the family like you think. Because if I'm going to a presidential candidate and say to them, Jeff, what can you do for me? I ain't talking about nobody else, for me. And if you do this for me, I'll vote for you. That says a lot about me, man, in terms of my vote and what I will sell it for. Versus somebody that goes, what can you do for the community? What can you do about criminal justice reform? That's going to benefit me as well. How can you bring jobs to my community? How can you help with this education gap and wealth gap? That's going to trickle down and help my family as well, Jeff. So I can take the African-American woman's approach and get something for me that way too.
I got you. Jeezy, you on mute, brother. You there?
I said, wouldn't me be us?
Well, and it depends on who it is, right? Because there are brothers that'll go in and make a deal just for them and turn their back on the entire community. And there are brothers that'll go in the door and work a deal, and they've got a business that's going to hire 300 people in the city that they live in. And so I don't think that we can't paint the broad brush to say every brother that's trying to work a deal is the same.
Right.
But I do think that Doc's point is, how are we broadening the vision that says that it shouldn't be either or, it should be both, which is what I hear.
I think for myself, this conversation, and let's look at it like this. I think for myself, this conversation is broadening my vision, and I know what type of people follow me. So when I say me, I mean us. So anybody that listen to anything I say or follow anything that I do, or look at my words for encouragement. So getting this information to me, I can digest it, and then I can explain it to them, which is us, and say, this is why I'm really rocking with this, or this is why I really feel like this is better than what we have going on. And I just think it's when you giving that information to different leaders, like homies in Detroit, I know what that is. So if he's out there and he's telling people what's going on, he's getting information from people like you and us. Everybody don't get that opportunity to sit down and get all the small details, the big details, and put it together and then go spread it on, because that's to me, that's what it is. It's like like a lot of these things I'm just hearing for the first time. Mm-hmm. When I even think about politics, I look at it like I don't want him in, and I know that might be a ignorant way to look at it, but when you standing where we at, we just want it to be better for us. And so when I say me, I mean us, all of us. So I think what you guys are doing, and even having this conversation, is a giant step to bridge that gap that you're talking about, because we don't have all the information. But if you give the information to individual leaders, and they're able to go out there and give it to the people that lead in their world, lead in their world, now we got information, and now we can talk and have real conversations about what we need to do for our kids, what we need to do. Because one person might just think, prison reform. I don't care. I got, people just, and you got real fathers out there that's thinking like, I got to make sure that my kids are good, they can go to college, that we got this roof over our head. Then you got other people, so you got other people out there just trying to keep their tax money with their, that they're making good money, but they don't want to get taxed a certain way. So it's just like information. I just think what you guys are doing is so detrimental, because I can't have this conversation with regular people that aren't passionate about what's going on with the world, because they want the information that you're giving me.
Mm-hmm. And the beauty is, Sean, I want you to come in because I know you have something here, but the beauty is, Jeezy, you can. It's just how do we remove all the politicalese conversation from it? Right. Just talk about the human and the real. And so straight up, man, I mean, you and I know some of the same people. We can rap after this. Right. And let's look at one of those 2 or 3 issues within the platform and translate that into hood talk. Because that's the deal, right? I mean, it's not that this stuff doesn't mean the same thing. I never forget, man. So I ran into the club and this brother at the club once when we were talking about the nuclear option of the Supreme Court on the radio. And this dude stopped me and was like, yo, Jeff, man, I really appreciate you talking about the nuclear option. And I'm like, dude, you gotta be lying. You gotta be punking me.
Right.
This is one of the most uninteresting political realities in politics. It matters, but it's not interesting. And I had 5 people tell me not to talk about it. on the radio. Because you know, they always tell you, well, the demo don't want that, or the audience won't understand that. No, it's about how do we talk about it. And this brother was like, yo, nobody had ever talked to us about the Supreme Court that way. And I just appreciate you being willing to bring it. And so I just think it's a whole lot of brothers, man, waiting for you to have a conversation with them.
Correct.
They know that you walking in places they don't walk, and you in rooms they don't go in. And so whatever help I can give you, brother, in being able to translate that, you got me.
For sure. Appreciate it, Jeff.
I'm in, bro.
I mean, I don't want to jump back and forth, but we were talking earlier about Cube, and you know, I've worked with Cube, I know Cube, and I respect what he's trying to say, and I respect what he's trying to do. But I do feel like that transactional mentality is what got us in the mess that we're in now, in my opinion. I think the people on the other side were very transactional in the choices that they made, even though they knew he was incompetent, even though they knew he was a liar, even though they knew he was a racist, even though they knew that he was completely unfit in every conceivable way. It was transactional. That's poisonous. That's destructive. That's what got us where we are now. And so I would just tell Cube, you know, if I saw him, that even though I hear what you're saying, we can't work on that level because we're going to end up down a road that doesn't benefit the whole, which is what, you know, a lot of you guys were saying as well.
I listen, and I may be totally wrong. I just feel like Q playing the game, and that his goal is to have a meeting with a campaign to be able to talk through those issues.
Who are we speaking on now? Cube or Q? Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cube. And listen,
okay.
Cube's not a political scientist.
Right.
And so I think there are some people that really were just like, yo, I'm not looking for an actor, rapper to give me any information on politics. And I think that's problematic because I think that, you know, who's serving our community, who served our community, who's been there with our community. And so I'm loving the debate because I think the debate is important. And I think the debate's important for us to have where none of you all who said you disagreed with him demonized him. You didn't say cancel him. You didn't say, oh man, I ain't messing with him. I ain't watching Barbershop no more.
No, watch Barbershop. Please watch Barbershop.
but these are the kind of conversations we need to have. I'm going to let our folks tell us how much time we have left because I know we were scheduled to go till 8, and I know y'all, some of y'all have to jump. But what I'd love to do is if I can get you all to just give some closing remarks, and as you think about those in just maybe a minute or so, you know, what is something that is just beyond like beyond the politic. So you know, for me, I think about this through the lens of my father's side of the family moved from Columbus, Georgia to Cleveland, Ohio when the Ford plants opened, because my grandfather couldn't afford to work as a mechanic in Columbus, Georgia. And when I think about those jobs, the jobs that my grandfather had, the job that my uncles had, the fact that they retired after 30 and 35 years with a pension, those jobs don't exist anymore. And so I'm supporting this ticket because I believe that they've got a vision to look at industry different, and support the kind of small and medium-sized businesses that would be the kind of business my grandfather would get a job in Cleveland with now in a way that he would have gotten with Ford 50 years ago. And so it's that personal for me. And I think it is for all of us if we find it. And I think if we started telling those stories more, cats would be able to feel us instead of you just got to get Trump out or Biden is the only real option or vote all the way down ticket because of these reasons. What is the real straight up personal reason, y'all? The thing that you go to sleep praying about and wake up working for, that is the reason why you want to see this ticket become president and not the other one.
I know that for me, it's my children. My daughter was born in 2008. My son was born in 2010. For most of their life, up until the last couple of years, Barack Obama was the president. That's what they thought was normal. That's what they thought the world was. And then they went from that to this abomination. And it's very scary to them. It's very confusing to them. And for me, I just want to do everything that I can to just show them that the world isn't this crazy, unpredictable, horrible, scary place, that we can have a normal, regular life, that you don't have to have a president that looks at you as less than human, and start off with Barack Obama and then end up with this. I need them to see that there's a middle road that is full of possibilities for them.
Yep. Yep. Rep Jewel.
I would say, I'm just here for my people. And I think, on November 4th, the day after Election Day, I'm most confident, and I can almost put my full faith in saying that with Biden and Harris, on that day after Election Day, we'll be ready to work on issues that matter most to us. And it will be actually a conversation that we can have. And not just something where I'm bringing all of my interests, but where we can share the same interests at the table. And I'm just here for my people. And I think they're here for us, and that's why I'm here.
That's good. And you all, let's sure we make people know this is probably going to be less an election day and more an election season. Mm-hmm. So as we're sharing information with folks, letting them know that this will not be like any other election day before, because there's going to be a whole lot more counting to do after that day. And our folks in particular need to make sure they get the right information so they know that it's a sound process. Jeezy, you brother.
Oh man, I'm here for the culture. I'm here for the culture. I'm here for, the have-nots. I'm here for the people that's been demonized, the ones that are misunderstood. I'm here for my family. I'm here for, the struggle. And for me, I just feel like, the other guy, he doesn't understand our struggle. Not just said it should be just about us as a whole, but there's nothing that he can do to help, my people in the struggle. And I feel like, if anything, he's more alienating us out and pushing us to the side. And I feel that, with Biden and Harris, to me, it seems as if they're willing to get in there and get their hands dirty to, just shed light on the issues that we have and the things that are obviously wrong with what's going on with our culture these days. And that's why I'm here.
I'm so sorry. I got to jump off. I'm so sorry.
Right, brother. Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you, homie.
Glad to be here. I think you all fantastic brothers. I learned a lot today. Have a good one. Let's get this done.
Appreciate you,
sure.
sir.
All right. Take care, fellas.
And so our senior statesman, Doc, I want to leave you with the last word here.
Well, I hope I'm not the senior statesman, but I'll speak.
That's a good thing, brother. That's a good thing.
Right.
I want someone in office who is going to be honest about structural and institutional racism, who's not going to allow the killing of Black people, particularly Black men, to go unchecked. When I looked at George Floyd, I thought about Emmett Till, who was accused of flirting with a white woman, and they went to his house. The woman's husband and her brother went to his house, made him carry a 75-pound cotton gin fan to the banks of the Tallahatchie, made him strip down naked, beat him damn near to death, gouged his eye out, shot him in the head, wrapped him in barbed wire, and threw him in the Tallahatchie River. And it was just last month that the state of Mississippi decided to take the Confederate flag down. I need somebody who's going to be serious in that office, who's going to look out after us. Breonna Taylor shouldn't have died laying up in her bed, sleep. Ahmaud Arbery out jogging, and George Taylor, we saw what happened to him. I need somebody that hurts them just as much as it hurts me, and it moves them to action.
I want to do something real quick. Rep Jones, listen, Michigan is a crazy important state. And if we think that it doesn't matter what happens in Michigan, we are just incredibly mistaken. And so I just wanted to give you 2 seconds, because I know that there's some folks from Michigan on the line and those that'll hear this And there's some special things I think you can say in this moment that helps them contextualize how important they are in this process.
You know what, and I appreciate that. I think what's important right now is to realize earlier this year, our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, sent out absentee ballot applications to everyone across the state for people to have the opportunity to do no reason absentee voting. And we've seen a national fight to basically prevent the Postal Service from doing what they're supposed to do. And so if it's anything I would say to people in Michigan is if you get that absentee ballot early, send it in early. And if you don't, hold on to it until election day and take it to the polls. The sooner that we can vote and lock our votes in without it having to be a problem, the better off we'll be. And I think many of us know that absentee voting is critical anyway. If we can get our votes in before the election gets here, that's the best way to be. If we can win before election day. And I think that was important when you said it's election season, not just election day. We need to be in that mindset of getting our people involved as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, brother.
Brothers, thank you so much. I mean, this is a conversation that has to keep happening. And we got to take it lower and lower and lower and lower to the ground. I'll never forget in 2012, the second time President Obama was running, we had something called Black Men Vote. And it was a super PAC that we did just in Ohio. Frankly, because we could only raise enough money concentrated in Ohio to go after brothers that normally nobody went after. And I'm talking about, we did some fun stuff. I mean, we were doing strip club drops where you would give a strip club DJ a drop, and in between shows, this dude was spinning and it'd be chains talking about, yo, if you can make it rain, you can vote. And we have voter registration in the club. I bring that up because during a pandemic and with our world shifting, we know how to reach brothers in ways that the campaign just isn't going to know how to. And that's not their fault. It's who we are. We know how to reach our folks in ways that nobody else does, which is why they invite us on. And listen, for those that are confused, Trump's not doing conversations with Black men to talk about what they care about and what they need. So there's an understanding that we can have this kind of conversation in ways that some that are formal parts of the campaign can't. But there's also a responsibility we have. And so I don't care who you are, if you are Black, Latinx, Asian, whatever you are, understand that each of us has a role to speak to our folks. And those folks who we know, to Jeezy's point, just may not have all the information that they need to have to make the kind of decision to support themselves and their community. And so not only do we say thank you to the Biden campaign for doing Shop Talk, but we also say thank you to The Root and to A Black Man Can, who are our media partners who are talking to our community on a daily basis. We've got a short period of time, you all. So if you haven't filled out your census form information, make sure you do that. You have until September 30th. If you haven't registered to vote and know other people who haven't, make sure that you register them. If you haven't seen the ballot in your state yet, download the ballot and make sure that you go over that with your family and friends so that they know everything from the dog catcher all the way to those at the top. And then move like hell to get every single person you can through this moss pit of misinformation to make sure, like Representative Jones said, that they vote as early as possible to make sure that it counts as early as possible. I salute y'all, Kings. Jeezy,
man. It was a pleasure, brothers. It was a pleasure.
Doc,
Peace and love, family.
Thank you for everything y'all do. Y'all have a fantastic night, and we celebrate and salute you all for being a part of this conversation. You all have a fantastic night, and make sure you keep working until the last vote is counted.
Peace and love.